China has unexpectedly demanded that Iran stop blocking the Strait of Hormuz and shelling Qatar, from which Beijing receives liquefied natural gas. China's reaction was triggered by Iran's statement that they are ready to destroy absolutely all ships and tankers attempting to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, regardless of which country they belong to. Iran has declared that not a single drop of oil will leave the Middle East region. The Pentagon insists that they have sunk Iran's fleet and that the Strait of Hormuz is not blocked, but this does not reassure the carriers, who are still in no hurry to pass through the strait. Since Iran has already attacked 5 tankers that tried to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, and this, hits China very hard. Just like Iran's strikes on gas production facilities in Qatar, because China is highly dependent on Qatari LNG. At the same time, China's foreign ministry stated that Iran was not engaged in developing nuclear weapons and called for the US and Israel to stop striking its territory. My name is Alex Cipici. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, and leave any comment under this episode. This really helps a lot with promoting the content on YouTube, and I will be very grateful to you for that. In addition, subscribe to my Telegram channel, Peachy News. The link is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So, recently, the advisor to the commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran, Ibrahim Jabari, stated that Iran will burn all foreign ships that try to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Here is his quote: "We will not allow a single drop of oil to leave this region. Tehran is ready to strike all oil pipelines in the region to stop the export of oil from the Middle East." It is important to note that since February 28th, when the US and Israel launched a military operation against Tehran, Iranian forces have already attacked 5 oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. In particular, tankers flying the flags of the Marshall Islands, Gibraltar, the United States, Honduras, and the United Arab Emirates were targeted. So basically, Iran doesn't care at all whose vessel it is. The Strait of Hormuz is the most important energy artery on the planet. About 20% of the world's oil supplies and up to 30% of the world's liquefied natural gas supplies pass through it. After the start of the military operation against Iran, shipping in the strait was paralyzed because Tehran, which controls the northern shore of the strait, announced the cessation of trade through it. According to the vessel tracking system, marine traffic, as of the evening of March 2nd, there was not a single tanker in the Strait of Hormuz, while a buildup of ships was observed at the entrance to the strait off the coast of the Emirates and between Oman and Iran. In total, more than 250 vessels carrying oil, petroleum products, and LNG were anchored or moving near the waterway. In addition, about 70 bulk carriers and container ships were observed at the entrance to the strait. Before the route was blocked by Iran, up to 300 ships passed through the Strait of Hormuz per day, ensuring the supply of energy resources from the Persian Gulf countries to Asia and Europe. Amid the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, the price of Brent crude oil rose by 13% during trading on March 2nd and reached $82.37 per barrel. This is a record high since mid-January 2025. The price of gas in Europe jumped by almost 50%. But Iran's statement about attacking all ships passing through one of the world's most important shipping routes could provoke outrage from China. Iran has already attacked energy facilities across the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia's largest oil refinery, a liquefied natural gas plant in Qatar, and a major oil refinery in Kuwait. All this has led to an increase in energy prices and a rise in the prices of oil and liquefied natural gas. Specifically, China is the world's largest importer of crude oil and the biggest buyer of Iranian oil, not to mention LNG. Here, I would like to point out that China is particularly vulnerable due to its 30% dependence on LNG imports from Qatar Energy. That's why Chinese officials are strongly urging the Iranians not to strike major energy exporters like Qatar. Bloomberg reports this, citing top executives from Chinese state-owned energy companies. They also say that Beijing is asking not to attack oil and LNG tankers passing through the Strait of Hormuz and not to block it so as not to disrupt energy supplies. On the other hand, Iran could end up shooting itself in the foot. After all, Iran is much more dependent on China, which is almost the only country buying its sanctioned oil, than China is on Iran. However, Chinese refineries also purchase large volumes of oil from other producers in the Persian Gulf. And the complete shutdown on Monday of the Qatari liquefied natural gas plant in Ras Laffan, which, by the way, happened for the first time in its 30 years of operation, may force China to look for LNG from other producers. And by the way, Qatar Energy holds about 20% of the global LNG market. Just think about it, that's 1/5 of the entire global market. At the same time, the spokesperson for the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mao Ning, stated that China considers Iran a country that is not engaged in developing nuclear weapons and calls for the US and Israel to stop their strikes against it. She added that Iran has repeatedly confirmed it has no intention of developing such weapons. She emphasized that the start of military actions by the US and Israel against Iran took place during negotiations, allegedly violated international norms, and increased tensions in the Middle East. And Mao Ning added that Beijing always advocates for a peaceful resolution of the Iranian nuclear issue through dialogue and negotiations and recognizes Tehran's legitimate right to the peaceful use of nuclear energy. By the way, today some wild Russians, represented by Sergei Lavrov, were also yapping about how Iran is not developing nuclear weapons and that the Americans have deceived everyone. But this could lead to Iran eventually acquiring nuclear weapons. After all, as Lavrov put it, the US doesn't attack those who have nuclear bombs. But I won't focus on the opinions of some shady Russians. Nobody cares what they're babbling about the war in the Middle East. But in this situation, the Pentagon stated that the Strait of Hormuz remains open for civilian shipping, despite the statement by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps about blocking the waterway. They say that at the moment Iran is not patrolling the strait and there are no signs of mining so far. By the way, 80% of their oil goes to China, and mining the strait would cause damage to Iran itself and its key ally. So for now, it's just Tehran's rhetoric. In addition, the United States Central Command, CENTCOM, announced the destruction of all 11 Iranian military ships and vessels that were in the Gulf of Oman at the start of the US and Israeli operation. CENTCOM emphasized that Iran has been harassing and attacking international shipping in this area for decades, but not this time. Overall, the destruction of Iran's naval forces was named as one of the key objectives of the US operation, along with the elimination of its nuclear program and missile capabilities. So, as strange as it may sound, the US operation against Iran actually plays into China's hands as well. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like the video. If you found this episode interesting and useful, you can support the work of this YouTube channel with your donation or subscription using the links and details in the description of this video or by scanning the QR code on your screen. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.